This is Joel, continuing the special class of 7 students in Honolulu. On the other side of this tape, or rather on the other track, you have a complete exposition of the letter of truth, of the truth which you must know in order rightly to understand the principle of existence. You will find there that it is not only necessary to be absolute in knowing that God is all, but that you will only come into the understanding of God is all in proportion as you understand the nature of error as nothingness, as a suggestion or claim or appearance produced by a universal mesmerism or hypnotism. It is not a simple matter to have the correct letter of truth. It has not often been presented to the world, but you have it here on this tape. And if you ponder it, entertain it in consciousness, practice it, eventually you will come into the spirit of truth, or actual consciousness of truth, or Christ consciousness, or God consciousness. Now I bring to your attention the statement of Paul. I live, yet not I. Christ liveth in me. Very often you hear me refer to that as I live, yet not I. Christ liveth my life. I ask you to remember this and to believe it, that there comes a point in your spiritual development when you are no longer entirely you, or perhaps I should say, you are not solely you. The point of transition comes in which a presence becomes real within you and takes over your life. From the moment of this transition, you do not really have to take any anxious concern for your life, because there is always this it, this Christ, this presence, and it brings to you your experiences. The point that I wish to make first is that there is this day of transition in your experience, when you pass from being a human being, thinking your own thoughts, planning your own life, arranging your own affairs, a transition to a place where you really and truly feel this inner presence and live as if you had stepped aside a little bit, say 2 or 3 inches to the right of yourself, and watch your life being lived for you. If you at that moment are in the business world, you will find business coming to you that you are not personally responsible for, that is, that you did not yourself go out and get. If you are a salesman, you will find sales coming in, credited to your account, that you yourself did not spend time or effort to get. If you are an author or composer, you will find ideas flowing, such ideas as you have never dreamed of. And you will know that you are not creating them, that is, you yourself, but that they are appearing to you within you. In the same way, if you were in this spiritual work, in the ministry of healing or teaching, you would find students being led to you, or patients or lecture engagements that you had made no personal effort to contact or to achieve. Thereby you would know what I mean when I say that I live, yet not I. Christ lives my life. For Jesus said, "The Father worketh, and I work hitherto." That is something of what I mean. The point that comes to your mind at this moment, let us say the question that is in your mind, is this: what brings me to this point of transition? How do I get there? What must I do, if anything, to come to that point where a divine presence takes over and begins to live my life for me? And here I bring you back to two of the major points in the unfoldment of the infinite way. Over and over you will find in the writings that unless one is born with this spiritual sense, this Christ consciousness, then one must attain it through knowing or understanding the correct letter of truth. Not merely studying truth teachings, because much of this is incorrect, to say the least. But I repeat, it is necessary to know the correct letter of truth, to have an intellectual foundation of the knowledge of truth. And this intellectual understanding of truth, continuously pondered, thought, meditated upon, lived, develops the spiritual consciousness that is the experience of the transition to the realization of this divine presence. Now understand me correctly. For those not already gifted with spiritual consciousness, for those who have not yet achieved that point of experience in which there is a divine something within their own being, which goes before them to make the crooked places straight, that provides their need even before they themselves know it, those who have not yet achieved that transition or transitional point in consciousness must come there through an understanding of the correct letter of truth. At this point of development, we become the vehicle for the operation and the activity of divine consciousness. When the Master says, "I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works," you will understand that He means that He of His own powers, His own knowledge, His own wisdom, His own strength, does nothing. But that the Father within, that is, this infinite divine consciousness, this that Paul called the Christ, it doeth the works. I, therefore, am a vehicle through which it takes place, or I am a messenger carrying this divine message, or I am the instrument used by divine providence. Any of these terms will indicate to you that if I am not living my life, but that some other power or presence is living it, and that I am the vehicle or mode of expression, avenue or channel or instrument for its activity, then you will likewise understand why the Master could say, "I and the Father are one, but the Father is greater than I." Here again, you see, this is not a going back to duality. This is not going back to a God and a man, but this is revealing that I, Joel, am an instrument for I, God, but I, God, and I, Joel, are one. I, God, being the infinite, divine, universal principle and Joel its instrumentality, vehicle, body, mode of expression, form, instrument, or outlet. And yet one. You remember how many times I use in this work the scriptural statement that the place whereon I stand is holy ground? The reason, of course, is that I and the Father stand here. But remember this, that I, Joel, the outer selfhood, is but the vehicle or avenue for I, God, which is also I, Joel, the infinite invisible. And therefore, we are one. The outer expresses the inner, or the inner manifests and expresses itself through and as the outer. Now, of course, these are just statements or affirmations until the moment of transition, at which time they become reality. In other words, there is an actual time in one's life when this is not a statement of truth, when it is an actual fact. When I can get up in the morning knowing that there will be mail on my desk, and that mail will give me something to do during the day. It may be healing work or teaching work or a call to lecture, but be assured of this, that either in that mail or on the telephone or through some call that comes during the day, my work is given me to do. And along with it, the necessary finances are supplied. It is true, one day these finances may come in through patience, and another day as a royalty on a book. That has nothing to do with it. Be assured of this, if I have attained that point in consciousness where Christ is living my life, Christ is also maintaining and sustaining my life. Not only providing me the activity, but providing me with the necessary intelligence and love, the necessary wisdom and strength to carry out this work. And also it is supplying me with the necessary finances to carry on this work. It is all one. I, of my own self, can do nothing, but this infinite invisible, which now has taken over my life, and is using me as a vehicle for its expression, it fulfills itself in my experience. It comes to be the fulfillment of my life. It provides me with transportation, even if the human claim is that there are no seats left. It provides me with accommodations, even if the hotels say there is no room. It provides me with everything necessary to the fulfillment of the message, since the message is not mine. Remember? My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. And if I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. So you see that whatever is necessary for the expression of the message, whether it is the Christ message, whether it is the Christian Science message, whether it is the Infinite Way message, be assured of this, that whoever is inspired as the messenger is likewise supported, maintained, and sustained by that which provides the message. Now, you see that the object of what I'm saying to you is, first of all, that there is a divine presence, which we may call the Christ, which takes over at some point or other our experience and lives itself through and as us. And the second object is to tell you that the means of arriving at that point of experience is study, meditation, and practice of the correct letter of truth, until that correct letter of truth, abiding in consciousness, finally appears in the full bloom of spiritual realization. Well, now you understand that Jesus speaking of the Father within, was speaking of the power of divine presence that animated his being. That was the healing power. That was the power that multiplied loaves and fishes. That was the power that raised Lazarus. In the same way, you understand that when Paul speaks of being able to do all things through Christ, or the Christ liveth his life, that he likewise is referring to that divine power which we in the infinite way call the infinite invisible, and that it was the power which gave him his message and his mission that he carried out into the world of his day. And likewise, that same presence and power that gave him his strength, his inspiration, and his supply. You know that after churches were organized, Paul still carried money from one city to another, collected in one place to finance churches in another. In other words, even though they had the message on paper or in voice, they still did not have sufficient of the Spirit to bring forth all that was necessary for fulfillment. But evidently Paul did, because Paul had the inspiration that gave him the message. He had the inspiration that sent him out on his mission. He had the inspiration that provided the funds. He also had sufficient inspiration to provide funds for those churches. Oh, yes. The Father within me that doeth the works of the Master, and the Christ which strengtheneth me, of Paul, is that same power, that same Spirit of truth, that same consciousness of truth with which we are dealing today in the infinite way, and which I am assuring you is as possible to you as it was to our Hebrew and Christian friends of old, and naturally that you see manifested in some degree in those of our present day. You remember at the Temple Gate Beautiful, Peter and John had healed a man. The Hebrews marveled and would make much of Peter and John, except that they stopped it. Why marvel ye men of Israel? As if we had healed this man. As if we with our own understanding had healed this man. Oh no. The God of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob hath done this thing. The same Spirit that raised up Jesus Christ from the dead will quicken also your mortal bodies. Do you see what I am trying to say to you? That there is a Spirit. There is a Spirit in man. There is a divine spark. There is that which we will today call the Christ, which will lift you into the fourth dimension of life. That is, into a state of consciousness in which you do not live by your personal efforts or your personal will, personal wisdom, personal strength, personal health, but in which you find yourself empowered from on high, that is, from the kingdom within your own being. Again, I repeat, there is a point which you must attain in this world where you will realize that you do not live anymore, but that this infinite invisible is living your life. It goes before you to make all arrangements for you. It goes with you as protection. And it seems very often to provide you with very difficult experiences and causes you to wonder, have I missed the way? Have I lost my Christ? Have I been abandoned? Have I become unworthy? What mistake have I made? Oh no, no. For all of us, there will be the 40 years of wilderness experience, or there will be the wilderness experience of Elijah, or there will be the 3-year ministry of the Master, sometimes resulting in persecution, even execution. But what of it? There will be the resurrection, And there will be the ascension still, for the simple reason that whatever this power is that is working in and through me to fulfill this mission is working in and through me for a purpose. And it leads me in its way for its own purpose, and I must fulfill it. In the end, if I appear to have had many difficult experiences, many trials, tribulations, temptations, it is only that the world may see that there is a power of overcoming. Again, he that is within me is greater than he that is in the world, and the very fact of overcoming is the proof to the world of the presence and of the power of this Spirit within. When the Master says, I have overcome the world, he means, of course, that he has at that time overcome all resistance to truth, all resistance to the harmonious activity of this spiritual consciousness, and that he now functions in the fourth dimension. He now functions in that state of exalted consciousness which goes forward without material obstruction, without physical, mental, or moral hindrances, in that state of divine consciousness which is called heaven, in which the realities of God's world are become so real that all sense of the three-dimensional world has faded out. Let us speak for a moment about this power, this spiritual consciousness, this Christ. To begin with, as taught by Jesus and Paul, and as revealed by Peter and John in their episode at the Temple Gate Beautiful, you see the universality of it. In some of my writings, and of course in some of the tapes, you will find reference to the fact that this was the same power that operated in and as Moses brought about the manna from the sky and from the water, from the rock, the opening of the Red Sea, the protection from Pharaoh. The same power that operated in, through, or as Elijah, bringing him his protection in the wilderness when he was being sought for execution, that brought him his supply of food in the form of cakes baked on the stones, ravens bringing food, the poor widow sharing from an endless source. Well, then it becomes necessary to know this, that the Master referred to this power and its timelessness in this wise: before Abraham was I am. Before Abraham was I am was this power, this presence, this thing which Moses declared, and I restate: before Abraham was I am. And lo, I am with you unto the end of the world. Lo, I am with you unto the end of the world. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And so, as you understand the timelessness of this presence and power, you will understand that at any time that it makes its appearance in your experience, it is not because it was not there prior to that, but that its presence had not been realized or achieved. In other words, this infinite divine presence is with you now, but only through the development of truth in your consciousness, only through the realization of truth in your consciousness, only through the activity of truth in your consciousness will it become as real and potent in your experience as it was in the experience of our Hebrew friends of old. And of course, I only speak of our Hebrew and Christian friends because we use that particular language. But actually, you know that I could tell you of the same power and same presence in the experience of the Orientals thousands of years and hundreds of years BC. You know that my study of the ancient scriptures has revealed the timelessness of the Christ. That being true, the only point that time plays in our demonstration is that particular time or experience in transition when we become consciously aware of the present, when it takes over our experience. From then on, lo, I am with you unto the end of the world. From then on, this power, this presence, lives your life, thinks your thoughts, does your deeds. He performeth that which is given you to do. He perfecteth that which concerneth me. Ah, yes, life then is lived in the fourth dimension, in that state of consciousness requiring no personal power, no personal demonstration, no personal achievements. Oh no, the ability to rest and relax and let the divine presence, the divine power take over unto the end of days. Now let us speak of the nature and function of this power, the Christ. The Christ is the invisible activity and substance, law and continuity of that which appears as effect. It is for this reason that you must not become hypnotized with appearances. By this I mean, if you have an abundance of dollars or investments, do not become hypnotized into believing that because of this abundance of dollars and investments or business that you have found economic security. Because history will show you how many times such things have been wiped away. If you have a bomb shelter in your garden, do not feel that you have demonstrated safety and security from wars and bombs, because history shows that it only takes a stronger bomb even to reach the strongest bomb shelter. There is no economic security in dollars. There is no safety and security in bomb shelters. Do not think for a moment that if you have a healthy body, a healthy heart, liver, lungs, that you have health. Many people have had these and been stricken down. In other words, do not become attached to effect. Do not place your faith, your dependence, your reliance, your confidence on that which appears as effect. Now remember this, all harmonious, perfect, spiritual effect is produced by the activity of the Christ. The activity of the Christ will maintain and sustain all effect, or in the event that you destroy this temple, in 3 days, this Christ will raise it up again. Therefore, you need not be alarmed at what happens to an organ or function of your body, or to your financial structure, or political structure, or dwelling structure. Since even should these for any reason be destroyed, the Christ that produced them, the power that produced them in the first place, will raise them up again. Now I ask you at this very moment to make a conscious transition with me, because I would lead you into the fourth dimension. The purpose of this work is to lead you into the fourth dimension, where you do not live by effect. You do not live by bread alone, where you live by virtue of the activity of the Christ, the infinite invisible. And in this fourth dimension of life, which is spiritual consciousness, all effect will appear in your experience as you have need of it, and it will appear abundantly and will be maintained and sustained in your experience if you understand the Christ to be its foundation, its law, and its continuity. Only if you suffer a temporary lapse into the belief that your dollars are something in and of themselves, or your business, or your political economy, or your form of government. Only if you lapse into the belief that they in and of themselves are something and can do something to you or for you, only then may your temple be destroyed. But if it is, recover your equilibrium, your spiritual equilibrium, quickly, in bringing to conscious remembrance that the Christ that produced them in your experience to begin with will now reproduce them. Should you, for any reason, become separated from some form of good, the infinite invisible that is within you, he that is within you, that is greater than he that is in the world, will raise it up again for you. The fourth dimension is that state of consciousness in which your entire reliance, faith, understanding is in the infinite invisible, and in which you learn to enjoy the fruits of the Spirit, the harmonies of daily living, the forms of good, and yet without attachment, without reliance, and without dependence. This must, of course, be remembered in your ministry when you are faced with discordant bodies, destroyed bodies, decayed bodies, organs and functions that have become useless. Then must you ever remember that the body and its organs and functions in and of themselves never had power, never created themselves or maintained themselves or sustained themselves, and never had such functions. It is the function of the Christ to maintain and sustain the body. And the body is only run down now because of that universal mesmerism, that belief that the organs and functions of the body in and of themselves had the power of renewing themselves or maintaining or sustaining themselves, because hypnotism has made us believe in a physical, finite universe. A universe with beginning and with ending. You will learn, as you make this transition into the fourth dimension, that the spiritual body is maintained and sustained by the very Christ Spirit that brought it into expression and manifestation. And while you will not see this with your eyes, in that secret inner chamber, in your meditation, you will spiritually discern the activity of the Christ about the Father's business of maintaining and sustaining this body. By now, you will have recognized that it is the Christ activity in your consciousness that enables you to live by grace. That the activity of the Christ, providing your daily activity and inspiration and supply necessary to its fulfillment, is itself the power of grace in your experience. You see, the fourth dimension is entirely one of living by grace. Living by grace means living without personal effort. That doesn't mean without work. It doesn't mean living without results of work. It doesn't mean taking 2 6-month vacations every year. Oh no. Living by grace means performing that which is given us to do without anxious thought, without concern, without worry, without fear, and without material effort. Without effort resulting in exhaustion. Oh yes, even our body works, but it works without getting tired, since the activity of the body isn't muscles or nerves, but divine grace, the Christ. Therefore, the body is as tireless as the machinery that makes the world revolve. Picture to yourself that spiritual invisible machinery that keeps the sun and the earth and the stars and the planets, the oceans, the tides, the rivers functioning. And then you have an example of the invisible force and power that functions your body without producing fatigue, tiredness, and without wearing out the body or decomposing it. Oh yes. Life lived by grace results in eternal youth. Be assured, there is a fountain of youth. There is a fountain of youth, and its name is divine grace. Life lived without personal effort. The Christ functioning our lives for us, in us, through us, as our very being. You have thought many times about this word grace, and perhaps it has puzzled you, and now you know why. The reasoning mind will never reveal to you the true nature or meaning of the word grace. Grace will only be realized in silence. Silence with a capital S. Silence. The thunder of silence alone reveals the name, nature, and character of grace. Do not try to think it out or think it through. Do not try to reason it out. Let the thunder of silence reveal in the very noise of its silence, in the very thunder of its silence, the nature, the character, the activity of grace. In the fourth dimension, divine consciousness, all healing is by grace. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Do you know what Spirit is? Not any more than you know what grace is. You will only understand the word Spirit and the word soul, the word grace, through silence. Yes, you will find analyses and descriptions of the word mind and principle and law, never of soul or spirit or grace. The human mind cannot comprehend them, and I would ask you, please, do not try. Relax, rest. Let the thunder of silence reveal itself within you, and it will reveal to you the nature of grace, and you will know how to stand in the presence of the valley of the shadow of death and not try to think some thought to save a life. You will be able to stand inside the lion's cage and not try to think some thought to shut the lion's mouth. You will learn to let the silence reveal the power in the presence of grace. And this is living in the fourth dimension. This is life eternal, to know the power of the silence, to know the power of living without taking thought for what you should eat or what you should drink, or wherewithal you shall be clothed. This is the fourth dimension, living in the realization of divine grace and able to meet every need, every situation. And only the thunder of silence can bring to your awareness the revelation of soul, spirit, grace. As you understand now that the Christ has taken over, and that you have become the vehicle or instrument for its activities and operations, that this activity operates through you, through grace, not through personal effort, not through taking thought, you will be lifted in the healing work out of the atmosphere of metaphysical healings into the realm of spiritual healings, in which you do not do the healing at all. And therefore you will have no affirmations to make, no statement of truth to make, no denial to make. But when presented with any case, with any appearance of discord or inharmony, injustice, lack, or limitation, you will immediately become silent. You will let the thunder of that silence be the activity, the healing activity unto any and every situation. You will begin then to understand the meaning of that word, I, the I that has come to fulfill, the I that has come to make the crooked places straight, the I that will never leave you nor forsake you. And you will know that you do not control it, it controls you. It governs every situation that is brought to you for solution, and you become, as the great master became, the instrument through which the Father could work. You will take your periods of 40 days of meditation, of listening for that still small voice that has thundered down the years, proclaiming a power above human power, proclaiming a realm above the physical realm, proclaiming life eternal and immortal, and to know this truth is life eternal, to be able to relax, to listen, to hear the thunder of the still small voice that life is eternal. That is life eternal. That is living by grace. That is the fourth dimension. You have Scripture, you have my writings for inspiration and for the correct letter of truth. And you have me and the personal contact with me to lift you into the higher atmosphere or consciousness of truth. The writings will go on and serve as the correct letter of truth for others and as inspiration for many. And you in your turn will serve to lift up other students into this higher consciousness of truth, into this fourth dimension of life. Thereby, you will impart to others the ability to live and move and have their being as that mind which was also in Christ Jesus, so that they in turn will lift others unto them. It is in this wise that the Spirit of truth will encircle the globe, and at the right moment will lift this universe out of its seeming physical expression into its eternal spiritual form. This will not be done by might nor by power, but by the silence of the Word, by the Word heard in silence, by the very thunder of that silence. My love to all of you, Joel.